YouTube, it's your girl Ashley and I'm back to do another video, and this video is going to be my labor and delivery story. Now let me tell y'all, I have a super crazy labor and delivery story. Like seriously, it's super crazy. I did not expect the things that happened to happen. Now this video might be a long one, so make sure you grab your snacks, grab a drink, grab something, because it might be a little long, guys. So yeah. So my estimated due date was on October the 20th, 2015, and on October the 14th, I was supposed to have my 39-week checkup at my OB, and she was going to check me for like dilation and things like that. And then she said she was also going to strip my membrane just to help to get things going, because nothing was really going on in terms of, you know, my body preparing for delivery. So on October the 14th, I got up and I actually had a few errands to run before my appointment, because my appointment was at 4 p.m. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go and run some errands. So I actually went on the road with my best friend Mila. She came with me, and we decided, okay, we're gonna go eat. So we went out to eat and everything. We went to this all-you-can-eat restaurant, Chinese restaurant called Mandarin. If you guys live in Ontario or the GTA area, then you obviously know about Mandarin. So yeah, so we went to eat, and then we went back on the road to, you know, so I can finish running my errands so I can go to my appointment. So I'm driving down the road, and there's this intersection, and this intersection has, like, you know, some construction and stuff going on, and the right lane is actually closed off because there's an officer in that lane who's, you know, supervising the construction. You know, if police officers kind of just supervising construction going on. So that lane was blocked off, so it's really just one lane going up and then the left turn lane if you're gonna make a left turn. So I'm driving down the street, and bam, I get into a car accident. And it was my first accident. I've never been in a car accident before, and to be honest with you, up until now I don't know how the accident happened, but a lady in front of me literally just mashed her brakes, and I'm not sure if it's because she saw the police officer and she got nervous, or she was on her phone and she didn't, I don't know what happened, but she literally mashed her brakes, and then by the time I could mash my brakes, you know, my car had already hit her. So I'm in the car, and the car, you know, hits the other lady's car, and I'm literally in shock and disbelief, because I'm just like, what just happened? Like, what just happened? And I felt like I even went dumb a little bit, because I just couldn't understand what just took place. Mind you, I've never been in a car accident before, like never. So it was so weird for me to be a driver and then to get into a car accident. So the officer comes out of his car, and he's like, you know, are you guys okay or whatever? And I'm like, yeah, I feel fine. But to be honest with you guys, in my head, I was in such disbelief of what happened. Like, I don't know, it was like a blur. So anywho, they called the ambulance for myself and the other lady, because she said she was feeling some pains and etc. I personally felt fine, but my best friend and my mom and my husband, who I did call after, did say, you know, you're 9 months pregnant, you need to go to the hospital to make sure that everything is okay with the baby. So I'm like, okay. So we get to the hospital, the ambulance brings me and the lady that I got into the accident with to the hospital. And when I got to the hospital, the lady who works in Emerge at the desk or whatever, she was like, how are you feeling? And I'm like, I feel okay, but you know, I think I should just go upstairs to labor and delivery to see if the baby's okay. And she's like, no, you can't go upstairs to labor and delivery, because they're just gonna send you back down here, so you need to have a seat and wait until they call your name for registration or something like that. So I'm like, okay. So I'm sitting down there, about half an hour goes by, and they call my name for registration, and pretty much all they do is just give me one of those hospital wristbands and things like that, and then I have to have a seat again. So I'm waiting there, you know, an hour goes by, and then they call me into another waiting area. And then so I'm sitting there for another like hour and a half. So I've been at the hospital for like 2.5, almost 3 hours, and my name hasn't been called yet. And I'm like, you know, like, that's kind of weird. So then my best friend's like, okay, go and find out like when they're gonna call your name, because you're 9 months pregnant in an accident. So I'm like, okay. So I go to the little, you know, the little desk thingy where the workers are, and I'm like, you know, I've been here for almost 3 hours. I'm 9 months pregnant, and I was just in a car accident. Why haven't I been seen by anybody yet? And they're just like, oh, there's 8 people ahead of you. And I'm like, 8 people ahead of me? And I'm like, well, can I just go upstairs to labor and delivery, because my main concern is the health of my baby? And he was like, oh, well, I don't know if you can go up there yet, but I'm gonna call up there to see if you can go up there. So I'm just like, Okay, what do you mean you have to call? Because for me, when I was going through, you know, the stages of my pregnancy, once I got to 23 weeks, my OB did advise me. They're like, if anything happens, you need to go to the hospital and go straight up to labor and delivery so they can check you. So I had that mindset in my head that when I go to the hospital, I need to just go straight to labor and delivery to make sure that everything's okay with the baby. But these people have me waiting downstairs in Emerge for hours and hours and hours amongst other people. So I go back and have a seat, and I wait for the guy to tell me if I can go upstairs to labor and delivery or not. And the guy says, okay, you can go upstairs. So I'm like, okay, finally I can go and see if everything's okay so I can go home, because by now it's like 5 o'clock and I got into the accident at like 1:30. So I go upstairs to labor and delivery, and then they give me a new wristband. I'm not sure why I had to get a new wristband, but they gave me a new wristband, and they're like, okay, you need to have a seat. And I was like, how long is the wait? And she's like, you know, there's 5 people ahead of you. And I'm like, I was downstairs in Emerge for about almost 4 hours. Like, do I really need to wait again? And she's like, I'm so sorry, but you know, there's other people who are here who are ahead of you, so you have to wait. So I'm pretty much waiting at the hospital for how long? And then when I was actually registering, when I got the new wristband, on the board I saw that my OB that I was supposed to go see that same day was actually on call at the hospital. She was gonna get there at around 7:45. So I was like, oh, you know, I don't know if I'll get to see her, because I'm hoping that I'll probably get through before that. But I'm like, you know, if push comes to shove, at least my doctor is here, so you know, if anything happens, she'll be right there. So I'm waiting for about another hour or so, and they call me in and they say, you know, we're gonna put you on a monitor for 2 hours. And I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna have to spend another 2 hours in the hospital. So they're like, yeah, so we're just gonna get a bed cleared off for you, and we're gonna put you on a monitor for 2 hours, because anytime a pregnant woman is in a motor vehicle accident, put them on a monitor for 2 hours to make sure everything's okay with the baby. So I'm just like, okay, I'm pretty much just gonna be at this hospital the whole day. So I wait another hour and a half for them to get like a bed ready for me, and I actually see my doctor come in, and she came in at around like 7:15ish or so. So she came in, and I'm like, okay, I'm probably just gonna get to see my doctor. So she comes in or whatever, and I'm still waiting for my bed to be ready, and then they call me in and they said, okay, we're gonna put you on the monitor for 2 hours. So they get me changed into a gown or whatever, and they put the monitors on me. It's pretty much like 2 strips, and one listens for the baby's heart rate, and another one listens or detects like if you're having contractions or whatever. So I'm laying on the monitor for about like half an hour or so, and my doctor comes in and she's like, Ashley, what happened? And I'm like, I was in a car accident and etc etc etc. And she's like, okay, well, you know, I'm gonna check you now. So she pretty much like did my appointment while I was being monitored. Like what I was supposed to do at my OB appointment, she pretty much did while I was at the hospital. So she checked me and she's like, okay, well, you're about 3 centimeters. So I was like, okay. It's like I didn't know how to feel about if it was like a good thing or a bad thing. She's like, you're about 3 centimeters. So I'm like, okay. So she's like, I'm gonna strip your membrane. So I'm like, okay. So then after she and the attending nurse who's working with her, they're looking at the monitor and they're realizing that my daughter's heart rate is fluctuating. It's going above normal and below normal. So it was really unstable and things like that, and it was a bit of a concern for her. So she's like, okay, Ashley, well, you know what? You know, the baby's heart rate doesn't look too good. It's not supposed to be going, you know, so high up and then so low down. And she's showing me like on the screen like where the range is supposed to be. And she's like, so you know what, I think the best thing to do is just to keep you overnight and then see if you start to progress or anything. Because sometimes even when you are 3 centimeters, you can be 3 centimeters for a long time. It could be 3 centimeters for like a couple days or things like that. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to continue to progress. And even when you get your membrane stripped, it's not a guaranteed, you know, way of ensuring that your labors are going to progress and are going to go into active labor or anything. So she's like, we're going to keep you overnight. So I'm like, okay. So she had to take me out of that room that I was in and put me into one of the labor and delivery rooms. So by the time they put me in the labor and delivery room, and then another nurse comes in and they check me, I'm at 4 centimeters. So they're like, whoa, Ashley, you're progressing. So they're like, you know what, you're technically in active labor when you get to 4 centimeters. So they're like, okay, we're gonna keep you. So I'm just like, okay, like wow, this is actually happening right now. But like in my head it was like I was still in disbelief about the accident. I was still kind of shaken up about that. And then now like I am progressing and I'm in active labor. Like it was a lot to handle. So my husband was there with me the whole time and I was in the hospital. So he's pretty much in the room and he's like, oh, like, you know, things are happening now and etc. So, you know, it's kind of exciting. So then the nurse gets me all set on the bed and things like that, shows me how to use the bed, up, down, gives me the remote for the TV, and then she comes to give me my IV also. And let me tell you guys, I am so scared of needles. Like I have a fear of needles, but whenever I get a needle it doesn't hurt, but I anticipate that there's gonna be so much pain and it's gonna hurt so much. So I went the IV and then the nurse tried and she didn't get it. And let me tell you, it actually hurt to get the IV. Like it hurt when she tried. And then the fact that she didn't get it and she had to do it again made me even more terrified. So I'm there waiting for her to try to get the IV done again. And she's like, you know, your veins are small and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, okay. So then she's like, it's okay. I'm going to get the anesthesiologist to come and do the IV for you. Because the anesthesiologist is the person who does like epidurals and they're really good with needles, I'm guessing. So she let him do the IV for me. So he came in and he was able to get my IV really quickly. It didn't hurt as much with him. He did a really good job actually. And then the nurse comes back in and she's like, are you going to be getting an epidural? And I'm like, I don't know yet. And I'm like, and she's like, well, if you want to get an epidural, just don't wait until the pain becomes unbearable, because in order to get the epidural you do have to sit still, and if a contraction does happen while you're getting the epidural you can't move. So I'm like, okay, so I kept that in mind. So my doctor comes in again to check me and I was still 4 centimeters and she's like, do you feel that? And I'm like, feel what? And she's like, you're having contractions. And I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, you're having contractions. And I literally did not feel anything, like no contractions. And she shows me up on the monitor that I've been having contractions and literally I did not feel anything. And she's like, you seriously don't feel that you're having a strong contraction? And I'm like, doctor, I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't feel anything. So she's like, okay, well, so then she gave me some Pitocin because she's like, you know, we want to have you progress faster because like I mentioned previously, baby's heart rate was going kind of up and down and it was kind of a concern to them because her heart rate shouldn't be fluctuating like that. So they did give me Pitocin. And they actually just fed it into my IV line. And once the Pitocin started, maybe about like 40 minutes after, I started to feel my contractions. And I wouldn't say they were unbearable or anything. I could feel them, but they weren't unbearable. Like I could still talk through them and etc. And on the monitor, like I could see the numbers going up, and every so often the numbers would get higher and higher, and the pain would get a little bit more, well, not even pain, but the discomfort would get, you know, it would increase and get more and more uncomfortable. So I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna get the epidural because they're becoming stronger and I'm only gonna start to progress more because by this time I was about 5 centimeters or so. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get the epidural. So she's like, okay. So she gives me a pillow to hold. She tells me to sit on the edge of the bed. She gives me a pillow to hold and she's like, hold the pillow, bite the pillow, do whatever you need to do. So I'm just like, okay, so this means it's gonna hurt, and she's telling me that I need to bite the pillow. So she's standing in front of me. She was such a nice lady. Like she was like the best lady. She was there making jokes with me. She's like, girl, make sure you don't squeeze me. Squeeze the pillow. Because I was telling her how scared I was of needles and getting the IV, and she was like, don't worry about it. But I was still nervous. So she's like, girl, do not squeeze me, squeeze the pillow. So I'm like, okay. So the anesthesiologist who ended up doing my IV comes back to do the epidural, and he's pretty much just telling me what's gonna happen, how it's gonna feel. So I'm there embracing myself for the pain. And to be completely honest with you guys, the epidural is nothing. Like the IV hurt 10 times more than the epidural. So, but that could just be me. I might just have a high pain tolerance, because the fact that I made it to like almost 5 centimeters and did not feel any of my contractions might just mean I have a high, pain tolerance. So yeah. So I get the epidural and I feel fine, and by time I started to look at my contractions again, my contraction numbers were like sky high, and I'm like, it's a good thing I got my epidural when I did, or else I would have been in, you know, unbearable pain, and I wouldn't have been able to sit still. So, you know, I'm just chilling and relaxing in the hospital now. I'm watching TV, just waiting for my body to progress and things like that, and I'm feeling okay. And then my mom comes to the hospital and she stays the night, and so my mom and my husband are in the room with me, and you know, I'm just chilling. So they come and they're like, you know, you need to get some sleep because you're gonna need a lot of energy to push, and things like that. So she's like, you know, try to get some sleep and relax. I'm like, okay. So, you know, I sleep through the night and stuff, and then in the morning, at around like 8 or so, I was at 8 centimeters. So I'm like, okay, yes, like I only have 2 more centimeters to go. I can do this. And by that time, my OB had left because her shift was over, and there was a new doctor that was in. He was very nice also. And so he checked me. He's like, yeah, you're at 8 centimeters. So I'm gonna tell you what's gonna happen whenever you feel the urge, because it's gonna feel like you need to take a poop. That's pretty much what it's gonna feel like, because you're gonna feel a lot of pressure down there. So he's like, when you feel like you need to poop, it's time to push. It's gonna be a constant feeling. So when that happens, you let me know, and it's probably time that, you know, to push the baby out. So I'm like, okay. So I'm just waiting, chilling, waiting for the urge to push comes. And 10 o'clock comes, and he checks me again. He's like, okay, you're still at 8 centimeters. So I'm like, okay. And then 12 o'clock comes, and he checks me again, and I'm still at 8 centimeters. And then, but he was saying, but like, he said I was 8 centimeters, but he said it like, oh, you're still 8 centimeters. And like, it seemed like something was wrong. So then after, he was like, okay, do you feel like you need to poop? And I'm like, not really. So he's like, okay, well, we'll see what happens. So about 1 o'clock comes now, and another nurse, because my doctor, the OB who was on call that morning, was actually doing a delivery with somebody else at the current moment. So another nurse came to check me. She's like, you're 8 centimeters, but you feel very thick. So I'm like, oh, because before, like, I was progressing well, my cervix was thinning out and everything like that. But she's like, you feel very thick, and it was a concern to her. So she's like, have you been 8 centimeters? How long have you been 8 centimeters? And I'm like, since this morning. So she's like, okay. She seems kind of concerned. So anyways, the doctor that was in the morning comes back, and he's like, he checks me, and he's like, okay, you're 8 centimeters, but your cervix is getting thick again. So it was kind of weird. So he's pretty much saying, you know what, it seems like, so he's like, okay, well, keep saying if you continue to, they upped my Pitocin to see if I progress more, and then he said he would come back in about half an hour to see what happens. So by this point, I'm starting to feel urges like I need to take a poop, but they're coming in waves, like with my contractions, because I was watching the monitor to see when I was having a contraction, and then when I was starting to have, you know, the feelings that I need to poop and stuff like that. So he comes in, and I'm like, I feel like I need to poop. And he's like, is it a constant feeling? And I'm like, no, it's not a constant feeling. It's coming in waves. So he's like, okay. So he's like, okay, I'm going to come back in about 20 minutes. I'll see if it gets better. So around 2 o'clock comes, and he checks me. My cervix is like really thicker than before now. And he's like, okay, you know what? You're not progressing. You're still at 8 centimeters. Your cervix is getting thick again. It seems like your body's trying to push the baby down, but since you were completely dilated, your cervix is actually starting to swell. And that is why, because when I was feeling the urges to push, it was very painful. It was painful. I couldn't talk through them. The epidural wasn't helping. I was pressing the, you know, the little, there's a little button that you have on your epidural where if the pain becomes more, you can press it, and it kind of makes more of the fluid come out. And it was painful. I couldn't talk through it. I had to hold on. I had to brace onto something, onto the bed. It was very painful. And I'm thinking, you know, that it's, you know, it's time to push. That's what I was thinking it was. But he says, no, your cervix is dilated. Your cervix is thickened back up. It's swollen because your body's trying to push the baby down, but you know, your cervix isn't fully dilated yet. So he's like, the only option we have next is an emergency C-section. So as soon as he said that, he saw the look on my face, like I was just so sad and depressed about it, because One, I've never had a surgery before, like never had a surgery. I've never even had a tooth extracted before. So I was so scared to get a C-section. And then on top of that, I was so close to being able to push the baby out. I was in a car accident yesterday. My car is mashed up. Like I just felt like my whole world was crashing down on me in that hospital. So he's like, I'll give you a moment. And he walked out and I literally just started bawling. Like I was just crying. My husband's trying to holding my hand, trying to console me. My mom is there saying, Ashley, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Everything is going to be okay. You know, these doctors perform C-sections every single day. It's going to be all right. But I could see that, you know, she was concerned for me and my husband was concerned for me. But, you know, we had a prayer, and my mom called my grandma in Jamaica to pray for me, just to make sure that everything goes okay. So my mom actually wanted to come in with me, but then the nurse told my husband that if my mom comes in, he won't get to see the baby for a couple of hours because I'm gonna go into a recovery room. So then my mom is like, it's better for him to go in just so he's with me, and my mom will just wait until I come out. Plus by that time, all of my friends and visitors who knew I was out 8 centimeters actually came to the hospital because they wanted to come see the baby, because they expected that, you know, I'm 8 centimeters now. If they leave their house in about an hour, maybe the baby's out. So I did have some guests who were actually at the hospital waiting for me. So they give him his, you know, little hospital outfit and they roll me into the room. Oh, before I forget, after they told me that I'm gonna have to get an emergency C-section and all that stuff, I don't know if I caused this upon myself, but I got a really high fever and I was literally shaking because I was so cold. And so I don't know if I made myself have a fever though, because I was just so nervous and so scared and with everything that happened to me. But I did have a high fever, so I was literally like, I was shaking, I had the shivers and things like that. So when they brought me into the OR room where they're gonna perform the C-section, I am shaking like crazy because that room is already cold within itself, because they keep that room cold to keep all the instruments nice and sterile. So I'm literally in the room and I'm shaking, like I'm on the bed and I'm shaking. I'm so cold. Mind you, I'm still crying because I'm still super scared. I'm looking in this room, there's these people, there's these instruments on this table, there's all the blue tarp, and like I was just so nervous. And so yeah, so the anesthesiologist in that, and who was gonna help the doctor perform my C-section, he was really nice to me, and he's like, you know, I'm gonna give you a spinal, you're not gonna get another needle, it's gonna go through the through your epidural and all that stuff. He was kind of walking me through what was going to take place, and there were actually 2 resident students who were also going to, you know, assist him and the doctor with my C-section. So my husband comes in and he's laying by my head and they put up the blue thing, and you know, I'm scared that I'm gonna feel it, because when the doctor gave me the spinal, I could still like move my toes, so I was scared that I was gonna be able to feel them cutting me. And I'm like, I can still move my toes, I can still move my toes, and I'm bawling and I'm shaking, and I'm like, I can still move my toes, I can still move my toes. And he's like, it's okay, don't worry. Mind you, by this time they'd already cut me open and I didn't even know. So I'm just there, a nervous wreck, and my husband is there trying to say, babe, it's gonna be okay, you don't need to cry, it's okay. And I feel like I was just making him nervous because I was just shaking and crying and I was being over dramatic. But in the moment, like, I was just so scared. So anywho, they pull my daughter out, and I'm expecting to hear a big screaming and crying, wah, wah, wah. And all I heard were little like very little, and then I got nervous all over again because I'm thinking, why isn't she crying, why isn't she crying, why isn't she crying? She's just making little sounds. So then they bring her to like the little bed where there's a warmer, and you know, they're doing whatever they do, and they take babies out because I couldn't see. My husband goes over there, and he comes back and he's like, everything is okay, she's okay. But I'm like, why isn't she crying? Like, something is wrong, because I was feeling like he was lying to me just so I wouldn't be nervous, but like, because I don't hear her crying. But everything was okay with her, and then I'm still there shaking and crying, a nervous wreck. And one of the resident students come and she tells me, she's like, everything is okay with your daughter, she looks beautiful, she's okay, I'm gonna let your husband come and bring her to you. So then he comes and brings her, and it was just like, I was just like blown away. I was just like, wow, like that is my daughter, that is my baby, she's okay, she was bundled up, she looked so cute. And like it was like a sigh of relief had come over me to know that she was okay. I didn't even care about how the rest of my procedure went. I was just so happy that she was okay and she was there, and her little face, and like it was like it really warmed my heart to know that she was okay. So they finished with their procedure, and you know, they stitched me back up and all that good stuff, and then they put me into the recovery room with her. My husband is there with me, and you know, they're telling us to do, you know, skin to skin and all that good stuff. I literally am holding my daughter and everything, and it's like everything that happened just goes right out the window. It's like I didn't even remember that I was crying, that I was cold, that I was shaking, that I got into a car accident, that my car is broken, because I just felt so complete. I just felt so happy because my daughter was here. You know, it's my first. She's so beautiful. I love her so much. My little family is complete. Well, not complete, but like, you know, have my little family together. And like, you know, it was just an amazing, warm feeling to know that I was able to carry this child to, you know, term, because I was 39 weeks. I was 39.2 when I had her. And yeah, so that is my crazy labor and delivery story. And if you're currently pregnant and expecting, or you know, you're thinking of getting pregnant soon, although you might have a general idea of how you want your labor and delivery to go, or even if you do have like a birth plan of how you want things to go, please be aware that chances are things are going to go completely the other way. Things aren't going to go the way you want it to go, and you just kind of have to go with what's, you know, the most healthy for the baby. Because if I could have it my way, I would not get a C-section. I would say, no, let me push this baby out. But it's the best thing for the baby for them to do a C-section, to take her out. Because remember, her heart rate was going up and down, and her heart rate was up and down for the whole time. But she's perfect and she's okay now. Actually, today while I'm recording this video, she's actually 1 month. She's 1 month. She's actually 6 weeks this week. So yeah, she's doing good and I'm doing good. I am going to do a separate video about my C-section recovery. So look out for that video because it'll be coming soon. And yeah, so if you guys enjoyed my crazy labor and delivery story, then please give my video a thumbs up. And I also plan to do like different mommy style videos and things like that. So if you're interested in seeing those type of videos, then leave your requests down below. And if you have any questions or concerns, you can also leave them down below also. And make sure you press that subscribe button so you'll be notified when I have another upload. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Bye.